So, welcome everyone. It's another day of opportunity here at Your News Biz, and today our opportunity is to talk with my old friend Loren Feldman. He has a podcast, a newsletter, a website, an events business. He's everywhere. So, he's going to tell us a little bit about that. Loren is really an expert on small business because he's covered small business for Forbes magazine, Inc. magazine, the New York Times, and a whole bunch of other publications, including the Columbus Dispatch, where we both used to work together back in a distant century. At any rate, so Lauren, we could talk about a lot of stuff. What do you want to talk about in terms of the news business and small business? What comes to mind? What's on your mind today?
What's on my mind today? I do a bunch of end of the year specials and I'm trying to get them out of the way so that I can take a little bit of a break over the holidays.
That's good. As you look back at the year, what are your impressions? What are the things that you're calling out as being particularly impactful, either on small business or on the business of media? Either one.
I'll give you both. From a business perspective, my business perspective, uh, it was a good year in the sense that I took the opportunity to throw a lot of things against the wall and try some stuff. Some of them worked, some of them did not. But I felt like I learned, and I've got, some more stuff that I'm going to try to throw against the same wall next year and see if I can make more progress toward developing a business model that really works. Um, so that's the business side. On the covering small business, it's been an amazing, unbelievable, fascinating, difficult, challenging, every word you can come up with year. It's particularly amazing because it's so uneven. The businesses that I talk to regularly, some of them have really had a tough time. Some of them have done just fine. And it's been challenging for me to cover that because, something like the tariffs, I would argue to you that the tariffs have affected all of us, but, some more than others. And the ones who've really been affected by it, some of them have just been distraught. It's incredible the way their business model that might once have been extremely successful has been turned upside down and they don't know where to go. But for those who haven't been affected by it directly, it's almost like they're tired of hearing about it. So it's been a challenge for me to, how much do I focus on that in the newsletter and in the podcast? Because I've got, kind of a split there. Some people want all I can produce, and some don't want to hear another word about tariffs.
I know someone I very well whose family has a manufacturing business in Canada, and they source stuff from one side of the border and they produce it on this side and they send it back. And I mean, literally send, the final product in various stages is shipped back across the border several times as they, put together this final product. And uh, I haven't talked with this person in a while, but I just have to, I've just what I've read about how it's affected other manufacturers in Canada. It's got to be a nightmare.
It is, and it's just, it, the larger businesses have done better than expected in some ways because they had the capital to prepare for this, and maybe they ordered a huge shipment of raw supplies in advance. There were things that they could do. For the smaller businesses, it was just much more difficult to do that. And I know some that tried, some that had been manufacturing in China and thought, you know what, this is not going to work. We can't take this risk. They spent an incredible amount of money to move everything, all production to somewhere else that then got hit by tariffs too, unexpectedly. So, they tried to do what they thought made sense and it didn't work. And then, you know, all of this supposedly is predicated on the idea of encouraging domestic manufacturing. But because the tariffs hit raw materials too, a lot of domestic manufacturers got hit hard. And again, the bigger ones, it was survivable. The smaller ones, in many cases, it was an existential threat.
I have, as I may have mentioned to you a couple times, I'm a volunteer mentor for small businesses here in Cleveland, and a fair number of them have been people they start a business to sell stuff like mugs and other kind of mementos, t-shirts, sweatshirts, and things like that that have, the name of their school or their bowling group or whatever. And they, generally speaking, are sourcing all this stuff from China. And now they're asking me, now they're trying to figure out, how do I keep this business going? What can I do? Da, 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 da. And I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of answers for them. One of the things that I've been telling people, um, particularly in the area of digital marketing, um, people are telling me that Facebook doesn't work as a marketing vehicle. Google doesn't work as a marketing vehicle anymore. Google search engine optimization isn't working for them. And so I've been telling them, go back to the basics. Go to every person whose phone number or email address you have, anybody who you've ever personally done business with or who knows you or knows the name of your company or knows that you live in their town, go to them first and go out. Start from inside and work out as opposed to trying to bring people in from the outside. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that's very good advice. I mean, I think that was good advice before. I think all the things you just described play a role in improving your SEO. Now, maybe SEO is dead and it's going away, and maybe it's going to be replaced by, I guess, what they're calling GEO, which is um,
Well,
generative generative engine optimization.
or answer generated optimization, where you respond to a question. You create something that says, how are people solving the problem of X? And then you
With the
provide a
point
like,
being, so that you can be discovered on ChatGPT or any of the other chatbots. Uh, I don't think anybody knows where that's going. But I do believe that the things that improved your SEO will ultimately improve your standing on GEO or whatever it ends up being called. I think it's just good practices. It's all a part of building a brand and not just relying on pay-per-click advertising and keywords, which I think is going to be harder and harder.
yeah, it's been gamed so much that, people don't trust it. And then with AI, should we go back to AI now?
Sure.
Yeah, with AI, people are flooded with probably more messages than they've ever gotten before, from all kinds of sources that never reached them before. So when I tell clients, you should maybe try doing email marketing, they all say, "Oh no, I get way too many emails. I delete everything." And that's when I tell them about in the subject line of your email, you need to have your name or your company name or to your town's name or something where people recognize that this isn't coming from Afghanistan or wherever, you know.
Well, I think the key there is you want people to opt in to getting your email. Some people go out and just buy emails, and I've never heard anybody describe that as a winning strategy. People do it, so I guess some people must be winning with it, but I've never heard about that. I don't know how that works. But if you intrigue them, if you get them interested somehow, maybe offering them something for free or, a service or a product, and they sign up and agree to get your emails, then the chances that they'll actually look at them improve dramatically.
Yeah. What's one story that you've had this year or one topic? Well, we already covered a couple of the topics, tariffs and AI, but any particular topic that really rang the bell of a lot of people in your universe?
Um, Well, just on what we were talking about right now, I just published a podcast with a guy who owns a handful of trade businesses. He came out of the Marines, bought a plumbing business, and has grown it in part organically, but in part through acquisition, and now has three locations in two different states. And each of those locations has a different brand because he's bought them and then filled them out. Each of them now offers plumbing, electrical, and HVAC services. So he's grown it significantly, but he confronted this marketing challenge of, I got three different brands and three different locations. This is incredibly inefficient. I have to make commercials or, radio spots or wrap trucks, create uniforms for all of them. What do I do? And his first thought was to take um, the brand that he had the most success in building, that he had invested the most money in, and put that on all of them. But he ultimately decided, that doesn't really make sense because it's a legacy brand name. It's the name of the founder who started that business. It has nothing to do with me. It doesn't tell a story. And if I take that brand and put it in a location in a different state, what's it going to mean there? On the other hand, if I don't do that, the $1 million that I spent building that brand is going to be wasted. So what do I do? And in the podcast, he takes us through this conversation of how he decided, and it hits a lot of really interesting points, including, kind of what you were saying about going back to basics. When he had success building that brand, most of it was on radio, and he's a young guy. He would tell people his age that he was investing in radio, and they would look at him like he was nuts. Nobody I know, they would say, listens to radio anymore. They listen to Spotify or podcasts. What are you thinking? But people do still listen to radio, and the ads were very successful.
Certain programs.
And
What does he pick? What kinds of programs does he pick to advertise
we
on?
didn't go into it that deeply. We focused on, the rebrand more. So I don't know the answer to that. But the thing that surprised me is that he found that it connected with people uh, of all ages within the group that you would expect to own a home. So, people, late 20s and up. I thought that was a bit surprising, but he goes through the whole thing, and I think that story hits on a lot of this stuff. The other topic that's really big right now, and that we did a lot on this year, is anything related to succession. With the whole silver tsunami stuff, business owners trying to figure out what to do with their business. It's a real challenge for a lot of them, and we spent a lot of time talking about that.
Yeah. Going back to radio, um, in a lot of workplaces, you go in there and, the people who are doing maybe repetitive work, either in an office setting or in a workshop setting, they've got a radio on. You go into uh, the auto repair shop, or you're waiting for your car to be fixed, and they're listening to something about some talk show about sports 24/7, you know, why are the Browns so bad, et cetera. I mean, and they'll talk about
Oh,
it
that's right. You're
forever.
in Cleveland.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we don't have any Super Bowl champs like you guys do, like Philadelphia had, your
It's been a
hometown.
bit of a struggle this year for the Eagles as well, although they are doing better than the Chiefs.
Yeah, yeah. At any rate, yeah. And so the succession issue, yeah, that is a big deal. And I guess our generation, if you look at the population cohorts, our generation it's pretty darn big, relatively speaking. We weren't supposed to live this long. When they formed Social Security, you know, they assumed everybody was going to be dead at 65. But now, at 65, one of the guys I uh, work with at SCORE, volunteer, the guy's 10 years older than me. He's in his 80s.
I
And
love that.
he's a dynamo. The guy's
That's
just
great.
amazing. Yeah. Yeah. So whatever.
That's a wonderful thing. And I think technology advances like AI have made that possible. There's so much more you can do as a one person business. I think that's really part of the story of this time. But
Yeah.
with the succession thing, it's sad because at the same time that's happening, you also have a lot of people who own businesses who haven't necessarily kept up with technology and now aren't sure what to do and are having a hard time figuring out how to get any money out of their business at all, or how to preserve the business, even just so that the employees who work there will go on and still have a job there. That it's a really difficult situation for a lot of people, and unfortunate because I think a lot of money is going to get left on the table.
What about employee stock ownership plans? These are where, maybe the owner of a business maybe they got 50 employees. They're thinking of retiring. They don't have any kids. There's no obvious successor, and they want to transfer the ownership to the employees. Do you see much of that among your readers or much discussion of that?
A lot of interest. It's a really strange thing, though. I think ESOPs can be great. I know a lot of people who've done it, and they just become, um, they spend half their time telling other people why they should do an ESOP because they love it so much. They're so happy with it. But at the same time, it's also true there are a remarkably small number of ESOPs in this country, and I think it's like 6,000 or something like that out of
Huh.
all the businesses. And especially given the tax advantages, I mean, not everybody realizes this, but to the extent you're owned by an ESOP, you don't pay any taxes on profits. It's a pretty big tax break. Um, and yet, at the same time, I think they tend to get oversold a little bit. I think the companies that are pitching them try to make them sound even better than they are, and they can be great. But a lot of times they emphasize that you're turning employees into employee owners. And I think that point is a little bit oversold. You, you don't in most of these companies, you don't instantly become part of ownership. You still have the same job. You're still an employee. Not that much changes. Really, what you get is a pretty good retirement plan. And most of us have heard stories about it. If an ESOP's been around for 20 or 30 years, you have some people retiring with really substantial nest eggs, and that's a great thing. But if you ask people today, would you want your business to go ESOP? And they ask, well, what would that mean? Well, you might be able to retire with a lot of money in 30 years. Their answer often is, I need that money now. I got it. I got kids in school. I got tuition. I got childcare, whatever it is. I don't want to wait till then. And this ESOP doesn't really do anything for me. So I think it's important to think about how you're pitching it. The other thing is, people don't realize that ESOPs, like any business, can fail. An ESOP can go out of business. And if it does, that person who thinks they have a big nest egg awaiting for them, it might just completely evaporate and be totally gone. It's not like a 401k. With a 401k, the money goes in there, and unless you do a really bad job investing it, it's going to be there, but it's at your control. And if the company goes under, in most cases, all but a really small percentage, with probably criminal activity, the 401k will in fact be there. Not so with an ESOP. There's no law that says that a company has to set aside the money that they're supposed to pay out when somebody retires. And that's a risk that people should be aware of. And I think not enough are, because it just doesn't get emphasized.
Getting back to the personal relationships in business, you've got a pretty significant investment of time and I don't know, maybe money in an events business. You want to talk a little bit about that, what you've learned about it, what's good about it, what's challenging, and so forth?
Well, when I said I was throwing stuff against the wall and some of it's sticking and a lot of it's not, the one thing that has stuck has been in-person events. I've done three of them now. Um, my fourth one is going to be in your state in May 13th through the 15th in Cincinnati. Um, it's it's been
I'll
great.
have to go.
I would love to have you there. It's a 3 day event, and it's really kind of a peer group conversation. I promise people that there will be no speakers talking at you. This is the rare event. If you hear from at conferences, you ask people, "Did you have a good time? Did you get anything out of it?" And the response I almost always get, almost to a person, is, "Yeah, it was good. The content was pretty good. I liked this speaker. I didn't like that speaker. I could have done without this. I just wish there'd been more time to get to know the other people who attended the conference." Hear that over and over again. That's all we do at this conference. It's a peer group conversation where we spend 3 days. We visit some interesting businesses. We eat some good food. But the heart of it is we start by throwing out the topics each of us would like to discuss, and then we vote on them. And we address those topics in the order in which they get votes. And if your topic doesn't get a vote, you still have opportunities. There's plenty of time, where people go off on their own, take a long walk, wander the city, whatever. You can connect with someone there and maybe raise the issue that you want to raise. But it's not, there's no agenda imposed on anybody. And it's the first three have gone really well. I really look forward to it. I limit the size to 25 to 30 people so that everybody gets a chance to participate. And it's I'm kind of proud of this. As an entrepreneur, I'm a journalist. I have a lot to learn about actually making money doing what I'm doing. But my business model for the event, I'm proud of. It's pretty good. In part because I ruled out speakers. I'm not paying anybody to come speak. So my profit margin on these events is pretty good. I do pay for a little bit of an entertainment and the food, but it's been successful for me, and I'm pretty happy about that. I got to get some other things that work as well, but
That's
that's going
good.
well.
That's good. Do you want to, you can talk about this in numbers if you like, or if you don't want to, I'm fine with that. But um, you have how many um, free subscribers, paid subscribers? Do you want to talk about that? If you don't want to, that's okay.
No, I'm happy to. Like you, I've made a career out of asking people to be open with me. So I sort of feel like when somebody asks me a question, I have some obligation to answer. Um, I've got 6,000 plus subscribers total to the newsletter. Unfortunately for me, only a few hundred of those are paid. I'm working on that, but that's one of the things that um, didn't go as well as I hoped this year. I haven't figured out how to grow that number.
Well,
What
to be,
has been most, please.
just what I've heard from some other people is if you have 6,000 or 10,000, 10% would be great. If you could get 10% to pay, you're doing great. And that's, I think, probably pretty realistic. In my case, it's way below that. Let's see, 1,500 and I've got eight. So eight out of 1,500. Well, if it was 15, it'd be less than, it's like a half a percent. And I know every one of them. You know, there's not one of them that is not a friend or a family member.
Well, I think that's key. I mean, part of two things have worked for me to some extent. And one is when somebody does come in and they pay, especially if I don't know them, I always reach out to them and try to strengthen that connection and try to make sure they know about all the things that I offer and see if there's anything I could possibly do that would be helpful to them and make them, appreciative of the community that I'm trying to build. So that's been somewhat helpful. Most of the people who come to the in-person event are people who've already been active in the community. I haven't had much success. I promote it on LinkedIn, but I don't get people who have never heard of 21 Hats looking at my promotion and saying, "Wow, I got to go do this. I'm gonna pay to attend this 3 day event." Um, it's got to be somebody that I've kind of roped in a little bit. The other thing that's been helpful for me is I try to go to as many conferences as I can, especially if they invite me to moderate a panel discussion or do something like that, because then I get a chance to talk about what I'm doing. And usually at an event, I can find enough people to connect with that I developed a few subscriptions out of it. But it's very much a a one by one process.
Yeah, it
That
is. It really is. It's like, yeah, it's one by one, and really that's what I've been trying to preach, as it were, to my score clients. It's one at a time. Go out to events. One of the most successful score mentors, he's been doing it for 20 years. He was a big executive at IBM. He retired 20 years ago, and he's been working with score. But one of the things that he tells his clients, and I think I've picked up on it, is, don't sit at home, go out and, if you have a food business and you're trying to get it sold somewhere, go out and talk to people who already have that business. Find out, what are their problems? How are they marketing? Maybe they have some suggestions. Maybe you could work with them. Who knows? But if you go out and you find out that the market is really saturated, it's really tough. It's a valuable piece of information. Then you can figure out, okay, if I'm going to enter this market, I need to be doing something very different from all these other people are doing. So
that's very good advice.
yeah, and I stole it. All the best advice I have, I've stolen from somewhere
Well,
else.
here's a piece of advice I'm stealing. I forget who said it. I think it was the head of one of the big venture capital firms in Silicon Valley, and I don't really like venture capital. It's that's not really part of my world, and I think it kind of destroys as many businesses as it builds. Although certainly some businesses need it, but uh, the head of one firm said, "You know what? If you've got some people who really love what you're doing, if you have some true believers, keep going. That means something. It just means you have to find more. You've obviously figured out something that's working for some people. The easier job is now to find more. Don't give up." And I don't know if that's good advice or not, but it's what I want to hear. So I'm taking that advice, and I want to believe that it makes sense. I'm hopeful. I've seen it work for other people. Maybe maybe it will for me.
Um, do you have employees, or do you hire help at all?
Contract employees, nobody full time.
Yeah, but and where do you contract for the meeting events or what?
I've done a little bit of that. I've gotten some support in creating the events. I've also I kind of streamlined that a little bit, so it that actually doesn't. I, I I've done one of two things. I've either uh, found somebody in the city where I'm doing the event, and I've always done it in a different city, who will do that work for me and volunteer because they kind of co-host with me and they see some interest. So, for example, one of the regulars of my podcast is in Cincinnati, and he is very well connected around town. I think he's going to this isn't official yet, but the night before we kick off officially, I think he's going to get us in a luxury box at a Cincinnati Reds game with the owner of the Reds, and so he's doing that legwork for me. I That's been pretty good, but I need help with the podcast. I don't have the technical skills to make the sound work the way it should. Especially, it's a little bit complicated when we have four people talking on one podcast. It needs a professional's touch to eliminate where we talk over each other, and sometimes one of us has Wi-Fi problems or something. So I have somebody who knows what they're doing who helps me with that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Sure, you.
So, anything would you like to give me any advice?
Yeah, keep going. I think what you're doing is incredibly valuable. Uh, like I was saying about the there's so many business owners who don't know what to do with their business. The most common problem is that they haven't gotten out of the day to day. They're too essential to the basic operation that nobody wants to buy the business because it's not self sustaining. They would really be buying a job, and that's not what most people want when they buy a business. People have known this problem for years and years, but it continues to persist. We need people like you who have experience and are willing to give of your time. It's a really great thing you're doing that SCORE as a whole just helps so many businesses. It's not rocket science, but most people go into business know one thing really well and have a lot to learn,
Yeah, that's
like
true.
me. Um, and Someone like you who can bring fresh eyes and a fresh perspective is just invaluable.
Oh, thank you. That's going to keep me going for a little while. So, any final thoughts, advice to other business people, or anything that um, you want to follow up on?
Yeah, the next piece of advice I would give, other than getting the fresh set of eyes that you can get in all kinds of ways, either paying for it or through an organization like SCORE, where you don't necessarily have to pay for it. there's 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 nothing that fully prepares anyone to run a business. You can get an MBA, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with an MBA. It'll teach you a lot of skills. Some of them will be valuable. It won't really teach you how to build a business or how to deal with the situations that nobody can anticipate when you're sitting in that hot seat and have to make decisions. The best thing you can do, I think, is talk to other people on similar journeys. So if you can find a peer group to be a part of, other business owners, and they don't have to be in the same industry. They don't have to be in the same town if you do it virtually. Just find other people that you can talk to, so you don't always have to be reinventing the wheel. You can learn from other people's mistakes. Um, there may be no one else in your life who you can have that conversation with. Your spouse may not know anything about it, or even want to know what you're struggling with, especially when things get really tough. You don't want to talk to your employees, if you have employees, about it, because you might scare them. Your friends might be really smart but know nothing about running a business. Find people who do, and talk about your challenges, what's holding you back. You'd be amazed what you can get out of it.
Great. Thank you. That's very good advice. Very good advice.
I followed your travels for years. You know so much about uh, digital media. I haven't quite made it work, but maybe you can help.
Well, I work on so many different platforms now. I mean, every one of them has a different user interface, and I I'm working on, five or six different platforms, and they all have different ways of doing this, that, and the other. And my greatest friend these days is either ChatGPT or Claude, where I say, "Okay, I can't find the button. Show me how to find the button that's going to do this."
It's it's so nice to be able to ask somebody a question and not have to worry about how stupid you're sounding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Although I had one recently where tried like 15 different things with ChatGPT on a particular problem, and the chatbot started to sound very frustrated. Well, if you haven't done this and you haven't done that,
Yeah, it's funny. People make fun of it for being overly polite and almost fawning in its praise, but sometimes I see the opposite. Like every now and then I send it something and I say, can you improve this podcast intro or this LinkedIn post that I've drafted, something like that. And when I ask it, can you improve this? I almost invariably get the answer back, absolutely. And here's a version that does this, and this, and all these things that your version doesn't do.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. Uh, yeah. And I think it's a great aid. I know lots of journalists are, the apocalypse is upon us and all that. But what I see is there are so many useful tools. You just have to be careful. You just have to be careful because they do invent stuff. They're trying to be helpful. So if they don't know the answer, they'll make one up.
Right.
Um, but a lot of times it'll come up with one word. I'll say, please give me 10 potential headlines. And I'll read them and I'll say, oh, that one's pretty good, you know? So at any rate.
I agree. You do have to be
Okay.
careful.
Okay, buddy. Well, it's been a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
My pleasure.